Let's get into some developing news coming from the Carolina Panthers. They decided to bench their number one overall pick, Bryce Young, and I already talked about last week where he did not live up to expectations. There was a new regime, there was new coaching staff. Dave Canales is taken up with the Carolina Panthers. They've made some off-season adjustments, but that was a horror show against the New Orleans Saints. Well, okay, we'll blame that to first year head coach, new system. Let's try to give Bryce an excuse. Well, week 2 rolled around. They're at home. They're playing Jim Harbaugh's LA Chargers, and the same type of results we're seeing, but even more pedestrian. Bryce Young finished 18 out of 26 for a paltry 84 yards. He had a bad interception, and when you're looking at the tape, he's looking straight into 2 defensive backs. There's a couple options on the flat, and he just ignores it, tries to go Deontay Johnson's way. It's picked off. And that was enough for Dave Canales to say, it's over. We're going to have to put you on the bench for a little bit. And they're going to go with Andy Dalton to start moving forward. Now, is this the end of Bryce Young's career as a starter? That remains to be seen. There could be a momentary benching. This could be something where until Andy Dalton either plays himself out of the starting role or gets injured himself, this is when a chance where Bryce Young could regain the starting gig. But for right now, this is Andy Dalton's team, his quarterback-led offense here. At this point, head coach Dave Canales is just trying to navigate the NFL, and he's trying to get a respectable margin, because the last 2 games, they have scored just 13 points and been outscored by a ton, 47 points and then 26 points in the second game. At this point, they're just trying to get competitive, and that has to be the priority as a franchise over developing their quarterback in Bryce Young. And this move was independent of the meddling owner, David Tepper. Canales decided that this is the priority going forward, and let's get into some of the moves that David Tepper has made since purchasing the Carolina Panthers in 2018. Rewind to 5-6 years ago. The Carolina Panthers are about 2 full years out from their Super Bowl appearance with Ron Rivera and Cam Newton. David Tepper buys the Carolina Panthers, and the team proceeds to completely nosedive. It's been 31-70 since he's taken up ownership of this team, and they've had no playoff appearances, and they have had some good talent. They've had Christian McCaffrey, they've had DJ Moore, Brian Burns, some really good talented pieces, but they have traded them for pennies on the dollar. They didn't get a ton of value back for Christian McCaffrey. For DJ Moore, that was a botched trade to try and get Bryce Young when they ended up coughing up their own first round draft pick for this year that ended up being Caleb Williams, plus compounding that with taking Bryce Young and giving up DJ Moore in the process to Chicago, and taking the number 1 overall pick in Bryce Young when you could have had CJ Stroud. What a mess. Last year, they had an opportunity to trade Brian Burns for multiple first-round picks. Fast forward to the 2024 offseason, the New York Giants come a-knocking, and all they give up is a second-round draft pick and extend Brian Burns as a New York Giant. And in this new minted Carolina franchise, they haven't made any type of movement. David Tepper has been putting his hands all over this franchise. And for what? No good results. It's been a bunch of tirades. It's been head coach after head coach. I mean, it's been a carousel of head coaches since Ron Rivera got fired in 2019. So since that time, the Panthers have absolutely nosedived. I don't think there's any real hope for this franchise, because when you have a meddling owner like this who cannot help but get in the franchise's own way, he won't even let the GM do his job. And Frank Wright, who wanted CJ Stroud, I think the majority of the front office last year wanted CJ Stroud. They loved him in his pro day, loved the tape, thought he was in a better system. He's the bigger, stronger quarterback compared to the pint-sized Bryce Young. But it turns out that David Tepper overruled them, and that's led to this domino effect that we have today. Before Tepper, it was Cam Newton, Ron Rivera. They've had some pretty good dominance against good quality competition in the NFC South when Drew Brees was still in his prime, and they've won consecutive NFC South titles. They made a Super Bowl appearance, and they had a pretty good offense. And I think once Cam Newton's shoulder was busted, that opened the floodgates for David Tepper to completely ruin this franchise.